Donald Trump is at the NATO summit, and he was taking questions. And this was odd to me. It's just a little bit different, the way that he wants to approach things. I want you guys to always remember, as we go through all of these, this is the guy who ran on ending foreign wars and not getting us started in any new ones. Many of his MAGA sycophants said that as well. So as we have that, keep that in mind. Look at the way that he talks about his Secretary of Defense. He's not big on that name anymore.
Rubio with me, and Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State and Secretary of War. Should we say Secretary? You know, it used to be called Secretary of War. Maybe for a couple of weeks we'll call it that because we feel like warriors. It used to be called Secretary of War. In fact, if you look at the old building next to the White House, you can see where it used to be Secretary of War. Then we became politically correct, and they called it Secretary of Defense. I don't know, maybe we'll have to start thinking about changing it.
The Secretary of War. He's the Secretary of War. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. Now, when Pete Hegseth was going through about to go through his confirmations, he kept talking about how we're going to have warriors, a war ethos, lethality. He kept saying that was one of his main lines. So, of course, Donald Trump is continuing on the same path of talking about how this administration has a Secretary of War. This administration that was supposed to be for peace. Remember that part? Let's go to some of the things that they were talking about, because I saw this report yesterday as well. The intelligence on the effectiveness of those bombs, the bunker busters, as they were talking about, being dropped on those nuclear facilities in Iran.
3 sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back a few months.
Based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now, we presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program." There was severe damage that was done largely to the above ground structures at these nuclear sites. And so there was damage done, of course, by these massive bombs. But the core components of the nuclear program, we are told, they are largely intact, and it only set the program back by a matter of months.
So he doesn't like those reports. That was the main vein of this conversation he had. He really didn't like that those reports were out there, because that's what he wants to look like, a warrior.
But can you clarify, is the intelligence correct or is the intelligence wrong?
Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. Okay. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration. And you'd think that a media outlet would say, isn't that a great thing? I mean,
why would they?
More importantly for the pilots, for the military, you take their guts out. You take their absolute guts out. They had a tremendous attack. It was a complete obliteration. The other team, the other group, Iran, said, let's stop this. And you know what? Israel said it too. Very smart. They fought like hell, and then they said, let's stop. And they're going to build themselves. And I really see it as sticking. I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like 2 kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
They're a bunch of children. You know, if nothing else, Jesus, if nothing else screams supremacy, and I believe I'm better or a higher figure than anyone else in the world, is these 2 children are fighting, and now we let them scrap it out in the schoolyard for 2 or 3 minutes, and now it's over. Nothing, you know, these are bombs. This is war. This is people's lives in danger, but you see how much he minimizes it. But off the top, again, this intelligence report, he said, I mean, it's inconclusive. He said it's inconclusive. So it's inconclusive. And since it's inconclusive, I'm going to go ahead and say that it was severe and devastating and there's nothing there but rubble. Okay, you can say it, but it's the reports still say what they said. It's a direct illustration of how he approaches facts versus what he wants it to be. He'll say it right in front of you. This is the fact, but I'm going to say this instead, and you should believe me because I'm Donald F. and Trump. Here's Caitlin Collins. She was talking to him.
Oh, fake news, CNN? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Where do you hear this
You'll
question?
be laughing for.
You should really say how great our soldiers and our warriors are.
I think everyone appreciates our soldiers and our warriors. I do have two questions for you, Mr. President. You just cited Israeli intelligence on these attacks. Earlier, you said U.S. intelligence was inconclusive. Are you relying on Israeli intelligence for your assessment of
No,
the impact of the
no.
strikes?
Now, this is also Iran made the statement. And it's also, if you read the document that was given that Pete can talk about if you'd like, the document said it could be very severe damage, but they didn't take that. They said it could be limited or it could be very severe. They really didn't know other than to say it could be limited or it could be very, very severe. And you didn't choose to put that because it was very early after. Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out.
You see how there's a lack of actual evidence or any citing behind what he then said was, we've talked to more people and more people have told us. People have gone and looked at it and they've determined that that's that. Who are the people? Where's the report on that? Did the intelligence get updated? Again, it's only Wednesday morning for me. I don't know if the intelligence has been updated, but as of when he was talking about, if the intelligence has been updated and he's trying to convince someone of his perspective and his point of view, he should probably point out that the intelligence has been updated. Think about the fragile state of this ceasefire it's currently in. And the guy who dropped bombs all over the place is talking like this as if he just ended it. The same guy who says he wants a Nobel Peace Prize.
With that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki, but that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
Why would they be fighting right now? Why would they be fighting right now if you didn't take that out? The fighting was happening because Israel went and bombed. And then, you jumped in and said you were part of that, even though beforehand you said you weren't. But then dropped all these bombs, like, because we have to make sure we stop this nuclear capabilities that all intelligence said was not the case. The only intelligence that said so was Israel's, specifically Benjamin Netanyahu, telling you for the past 35 years that that's the case. So, but to bring up Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we ended that one. I'm telling you, we ended that one. The guy's mindset goes straight to violence, death, and absolute destruction. We're talking about nukes. The whole point of this was talking about how you don't think Iran should have nukes because that'd be devastating to the region and the world. No one in the world would be safe. So, by the way, the only country that's ever dropped nuclear bombs on anyone else and murdered civilians is this one. The one that keeps telling you that you can't have any, and at the same time jokes about or relates to the fact the first time that we did use them as a way that we end wars that way. And we ended this one the same way. I don't want to bring it up, but Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I don't want to, but I will. So he brought it up then, sitting down at that previous interview. So think about that, how he didn't want to bring it up, but he did immediately after saying he didn't.
And the New York Times, they put out a story that, well, maybe they were hit, but it wasn't bad. Well, it was so bad that they ended the war. It ended the war. Somebody said in a certain way, that it was so devastating, actually. If you look at Hiroshima, if you look at Nagasaki, that ended the war.
Is it Hiroshima? Okay, sorry. Again, bringing up Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
War too. This ended a war in a different way, but it was so devastating.
There's a repetitive nature to propaganda. He really wants you to believe this. Fine. If you want us to believe it, just show the reports, bro. Cite the reports. Talk about the people who are trustworthy to do it. I talked about it yesterday. If you're a lifelong, well-known liar and a con man, there's no reason for anyone to believe you just because you say, believe me. From my mouth, and has nothing to do with the intelligence, has nothing to do with people on the ground, has nothing to do with actually what happened.
The whole thing is collapsed in a disaster.
It's a disaster.
And I think all of the nuclear stuff is down there because it's very hard to remove. And we did it very.
What's the nuclear stuff that's down there? He said, I think all the nuclear stuff is down there. Just keep paying attention to how stupid he is. I don't know everything about nuclear sites. I don't know everything about proliferations of these weapons. I have no idea all the difference between uranium and the different nuclear compounds that come together for this. I don't know that stuff. I'm not a scientist. But what I'm able to do is listen to other folks who do know, who have described and talked about what it is it takes to create something like this and the reasons why they weren't near that. His answer is, it got all the nuclear stuff down there. What nuclear stuff, bro? Somebody should tell him something. One other part, because this is a big deal to me. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce. This is the folks that work for him. This is what they'll have to respond to because you never know what he's going to say. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce told reporters that Trump had signaled what he wanted to have happen, and that his administration is focused on delivering that. She wouldn't say what the process would entail. This is what I'm reading. She wouldn't say what the process would entail because she doesn't know, because he hasn't said it either. But clearly, we are focused on making sure that the guiding hand of President Trump prevails and moves this government forward. So we'll have to wait and see when it comes to what it ends up looking like. That's a long way of saying Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what the next step is. He doesn't know what the plan is. When he said that China can buy Iranian oil, he had no idea what he was talking about. He just said, "Oh, everything's wide open. Everything is great now because I dropped some bombs." And the people that have to work for him and maybe answer every once in a while for him say things like, "I don't know, he's a great guiding light. His light shines down upon me and I feel warmth. The man is omnipotent." That's their job. Former presidential candidate for the Republican Party, former severe adversary of Donald Trump, says this about his job under Donald Trump's ass.
I think, but ultimately, once the president makes a decision, his instincts are uncanny.
His instincts are
And
uncanny.
we have to appreciate that. That's one of the things the people of the United States voted for, is a president who has incredible instincts about the right thing to do. And our job is to operationalize that. When he says, "This is the direction I want to go," our job is not to spend all day trying to change his mind. Once he's made a decision, our job is to go out and make sure the president's orders are executed on. That's the way administrations work. When administrations fail is when you're filled or surrounded by people who don't agree with you. And so no matter what the president orders, spend their time trying to undermine him. And our job is to go out and operationalize, execute on the president's vision based on really uncanny instincts.
He's got some uncanny instincts. Dude just foresees the future, knows what's going to happen. That's why he's effed up everything that he's done so far in these first few months in office. I mean, he's just uncanny. On my job, Marco Rubio, he says his job is not to try and change this president's mind. That's the mindset. That's what changing the president's mind is, having a discussion with him and maybe telling him something that he doesn't know. Instead, it's whatever this president says, my job is to just go out and do it. It's a long way of saying my job is to be a yes man. I'm supposed to execute anything that the guy who doesn't know up from down wants me to do. My job is to sit, roll over, get pat on the head, and ask for a treat. It's embarrassing, isn't it? Isn't it embarrassing to say that publicly? That's something you say like behind closed doors when you don't want people to really know what your real job is. That's his job. He said that's his job, not to convince the president of something different in the world. Just do what he says. Just do what he says. What a loser. What a complete loser.